Looking into the eyes of those creatures is never a good idea. I ordered my army to surround those men without showing a single shred of mercy. In the blink of an eye, the first of them was completely neutralized. The leader tried to fight back, but my spectral chains locked him down in midair. I slammed his body hard against the ground and ordered two summons to rest their blades right against that helpless man's neck. Either you kneel and beg for forgiveness right now, or this is where you die. Watching a grown man shake and beg for his life was pretty satisfying. Yet nobody there had any idea how all of this actually began. The story begins by telling us that decades ago the world suddenly changed, with massive monsters emerging from rifts in the sky and terrorizing humanity, kicking off a full-scale invasion of dark creatures that marked the beginning of the mythical era, where ordinary people ran desperately trying to escape the slaughter caused by these beasts, until humanity learned to awaken classes with magical abilities to fight back, leveling up and growing stronger through combat, bravely fighting on the blue planet to secure safe territory for the survivors, making it clear that this new era belongs exclusively to those who awakened powers. In the present day, at Haichang High School in the Longxia Federation, the Grand Awakening ceremony is announced, with the magic circle ready in the courtyard for students to finally receive their classes, while combat instructor Lu Hu screams at the top of his lungs that this moment will define everyone's future, hoping that everyone gets the profession they have always dreamed of having. That is when our main character thinks to himself that after so many years since arriving in this world, his time has finally come. Carrying himself calmly as the student named Fang Zhou, and soon the instructor calls his name to step forward onto the platform, having our boy casually walk to the center of the magic formation, while the girls around drool over his looks and bet that he'll probably become a priest. While the jealous guys complain that good looks don't win fights and what really matters is the class he gets. At the same time, the instructor checks his profile, seeing that he is an orphan of heroes with perfect grades and an excellent physique, fully understanding why so many eyes are locked on him right now. Fang Zhou then places his hand on the awakening altar, feeling a terrifying energy immediately begin to react, generating an insane beam of light that shoots up into the sky and leaves the entire crowd stunned. But suddenly a dark mist starts covering his hand, turning that light into a gigantic pillar of darkness that tears through the clouds, shocking instructor Lu Hu to the point where he can't believe the kid just caused a weather anomaly, while a terrifying vision of an army of skeletons and death creatures manifests in the energy, bringing forth the presence of undead kings and generals with sinister auras, leaving our MC in the center of it all with a cold and commanding glare, until he raises his fist and pulls all that darkness back into himself, making the system screen successfully confirm that his class is Necromancer. The boy looks at the dark energy in his hand, feeling a bit reflective about becoming a necromancer, staring at the ghostly presence that now answers to his command, until loud laughter begins echoing across the courtyard, catching his attention, coming from a rich blonde kid who starts mocking him, saying all that drama was just to get the worst combat class of them all, pointing out that even if they look strong, necromancers suffer from the fatal flaw of needing a deep connection to the underworld, something almost impossible for a living human being to properly understand and control. But our MC doesn't care about the gossip and opens his status window with complete chill, seeing that he is at the beginner apprentice level with stats of Strength 1, Vitality 1, Agility 1, and Mind 2. At the exact moment, a special notification pops up announcing he awakened the Underworld experience system, making the boy smile in relief that his reincarnation sheet finally arrived 18 years late, with the system already linking his soul directly to the Underworld and generating an exclusive avatar for him, explaining that this skeleton can hunt and devour other creatures in there to evolve while also being summonable in the real world, which, in his eyes, is the perfect cheat custom-tailored for his new class. Deciding to test the skill right away by ordering the creature to be summoned, causing the summon to begin manifesting right before him, revealing the clone that the system confirms he can temporarily possess, detailing that every monster slain by the avatar can also be summoned into the living world to fight for him, which means our protagonist will have an endless army if he keeps hunting non-stop, turning that entire realm of the dead into his own private hunting ground, though he prefers to leave full exploration for later and order the avatar summoned into reality right now, receiving immediate confirmation from the system as the process kicks off, opening up a magical summoning formation, from which the skeleton warrior materializes, making it clear that this avatar is his primary and strongest summon right now. The instructor then calls the next student while secretly feeling sorry that the kid got such a class, but the schoolgirls rush over to comfort our MC and compliment the cool look of his skeleton, leaving the blonde bully fuming with rage, watching this guy still be popular with the weak class while he got the assassin class. And so the hater remembers that novice necromancers can only summon a few skeletons a year, planning to destroy the creature to stall Fang Zhou's growth, pulling a hidden blade from his sleeve without anyone noticing, and firing the projectile at high speed straight at the protagonist's summon, with the malicious intention of shattering the skeleton in a single strike. But Fang Zhou doesn't even flinch as the attack hits nothing but thin air, leaving the blonde kid in shock after seeing the skeleton vanish out of nowhere, before the creature reappears right in his face at terrifying speed, landing a clean blow right across his face and slamming the rich boy's body straight into the ground, leaving the poor guy spitting blood without understanding how that happened. The guy tries to get up while stumbling in pain, and seeing our MC approach, he screams in desperation, asking what he is going to do, gritting his teeth in fury, unable to accept that a simple skeleton detected a blind spot ambush, and thinking that a necromancer's physical body must be weak and vulnerable at close range, charging straight at the boy, throwing a lethal blade strike aimed right at him. But Fang Zhou casually catches the attacker's arm in mid-air like it's nothing, leaving the attacker terrified as he sees our MC's fist charged with energy, while our boy calmly warns him that he overestimated himself way too much, burying a heady punch right into the hater's jaw, sending the guy flying as a trail of blood sprays across the field, making the dude land upside down among the other terrified students, passing out on the ground completely wrecked. Fang Zhou finds the whole thing boring and decides to walk away with his avatar, while instructor Lu Hu arrives asking about the commotion, and the girl explains that Lu Renjia tried a sneak attack and got knocked out in one hit, leaving everyone shocked that a necromancer just laid out an assassin with a fist, while classmates help the beaten plunk get back up looking totally battered, making Lu Renjia swear he'll get his revenge. Later on, inside the school building, the boy finds an empty hallway where no one will bother him and calls upon the system again, ready to start exploring the realm of the dead as the prompt asks if he wants to proceed. Well aware that devouring undead creatures over there is the best way to boost his powers, even though it won't be easy, and knowing the danger is high but the rewards are worth it, he gives the start command without hesitation, receiving confirmation to wait a few moments, determined not to waste the chance he waited 18 years for to become stronger, until the final prompt warns about unknown risks and asks for ultimate confirmation, with the boy confirming and receiving the identity of an apprentice-level common bone soldier, being instantly surrounded by a magical transfer circle, and teleported straight to the dark desolate lands of the Underworld, where he wakes up in the middle of a rocky valley under a red sky, realizing he fully took over the body of the skeleton he summoned earlier, opening his avatar's status at the apprentice level with zeroed equipment stats and the bone armament skill, noting that this innate technique allows him to use bones to strengthen himself and forge weapons, realizing that this was the exact skill his avatar pulled off in the previous brawl. And while he decides to craft a bone weapon just to be safe before running into any enemies, when monsters suddenly start growling, causing a wild two-headed wolf to pounce straight at the skeleton, the two-headed beast throws itself with full force at the skeleton, making Fang Zhou realize he got attacked way too fast and that the underworld is genuinely dangerous, until his foot gets grabbed by another skeleton, giving the monster an opening to lunge forward and try to bite our MC. Even with his feet trapped, our boy doesn't panic and sets up a counterattack, throwing a kick with his free leg straight at the beast, landing a solid hit on the wolf, but the blow simply deals zero damage to the monster, forcing the boy to dodge incoming attacks while realizing how tough it is to control a skeleton body, until his eyes catch a pile of discarded bones nearby, and right as the beast leaves to attack the avatar, our MC activates bone armament, gathering the material into his hand, driving a sharp bone blade straight into the monster's chest, making the creature howl in agony as it gets pierced. But the beast's other head takes advantage of the close distance to bite the avatar's arm, causing Fang Zhou's real body back in the school hallway to feel the blow and cough up blood, making it crystal clear that any injury sustained in the underworld reflects onto real life. But the young man stays focused and decides to capitalize now that one of the heads is dealt with, as an idea hits him, ripping out the monster's own spinal column to use its death to his advantage, channeling the skill to morph that backbone into a weapon, and unleashing the strike against the remaining head, slamming the bone whip hard against the ground, tearing the monster completely to pieces with brutal violence, wrapping up his very first fight as the avatar breathes a sigh of relief in the dust. Fang Zhou is amazed by how ridiculously efficient the system's innate skill is in battle, when he notices a blue spiritual flame rising from the creature's corpse, feeling a strange pulse awaken in his avatar's chest, paired with an uncontrollable hunger that takes over his entire being, pulling that spiritual energy into the palms of his hands as he feels the power flow, swallowing the blue flame in one go to absorb the beast's essence, making the system window announce that his attributes just went up, increasing the avatar's strength to 1.1 while keeping vitality, agility, and mind at 1, celebrating the gain of 0.1 strength from devouring the creature, and noting that he also gathered 0.1 soul power, being informed by the system that this power comes from converting soul energy, which can be used to deduce new skills, boost potential, and enhance equipment, making our MC realize what a literal goldmine he has in his hands, understanding that all he has to do is explore and slaughter every monster in his path, to keep devouring souls and evolving without limits, knowing that as long as he keeps hunting through the underworld, his growth and the strength of his army will have no end. Suddenly he spots another undead monster lurking in the shadows, identifying the target as an ordinary apprentice-level skeleton used as cannon fodder, which despite being fragile and mindless carries a valuable soul flame inside, activating bone armament once again to successfully forge a sharp bone spear, impaling the enemy in mid-air and earning 0.1 agility and soul power, crushing another opponent to drain another 0.1 vitality and spiritual essence, reinforcing his own armor and scaling up the avatar's power, covering his legs with reinforced bone guards, until he reaches 3 strength, 2 agility, vitality, and mind, on top of stacking 10 soul power points. Meanwhile, back in the real world at Haicheng High School, Fang Zhou is still in the hallway muttering about getting stronger when Bai Xiaozhan approaches him, snapping the boy out of his trance, startled by her voice, asking what she is doing there while the girl notices blood dripping down his gloves, saying worriedly that he shouldn't hurt himself out of frustration just because he didn't pull an ideal class, making our MC realize she completely misunderstood and that he needs to find a more isolated spot next time, making up an excuse that it was just an accidental scratch to put his classmate at ease, until the school bell rings signaling that class is about to start, and Fang Zhou says meditation class is coming up, and they need to head back quickly. But suddenly, the boy has a coughing fit, spitting blood, which makes the girl panic, trying to drag him to the infirmary, though he insists he is fine while the system warns that his time in the underworld exceeded the limit and overloaded his physical body, until a glowing new notification catches our MC's attention, revealing that his own real-world stats rose to 1.2 in strength and 1.1 in the rest, highlighting the incredible skill deduction feature available in the menu, making the young man wonder if he can create his own original spells, just like the top-tier awakened powerhouses do at the peak of the world. In the classroom building at Haicheng High School, the bell rings, signaling the start of classes, with all the students gathered in the room as the teacher steps up to the podium to get everyone's attention, introducing herself as Shen Hongyu, a lower silver rank fire mage in charge of meditation classes, handing out the basic meditation method so each student can manifest their respective class abilities, explaining that meditating strengthens mental power, serving as the core foundation for casting spells and techniques, telling everyone not to rush because even a genius like her took half a month to master the process. But right at that moment, Fang Zhou's system detects the skeleton meditation method ready to be deduced to beginner level, leading our protagonist to hit confirm without even thinking twice, being flooded with a rush of runes and magical knowledge flowing into his mind, linking his consciousness in perfect harmony with the skeleton avatar in the underworld, confirming that the skill was successfully mastered in just a few seconds, showing that the technique relies on visualizing skeletons to gradually raise the mind stat, which is no secret to him at all, since visualizing a skeleton for him is as simple as looking at his own avatar, plus his avatar keeps meditating automatically 24 hours a day while he is away, restoring his mental power and unlocking access to enter the realm of the dead once again, prompting the boy to close his eyes and transfer his consciousness right away. Back in the avatar's body across the dark lands, he spots another monster in the distance, charging forward and ripping the creature apart to gain more vitality and soul power, thrilled that he can freely hunt and reap the rewards of each kill, until the system announces that the skill reached instinct proficiency and can be used to deduce new spells at the cost of 10 soul power points, discovering that the deduction process must be performed directly inside this dimension, clasping his hands together to begin the deduction immediately, having the analysis system start calculating the new technique, until the screen confirms success and grants him the Bone Dart spell, detailing that the spell condenses a piercing bone projectile charged with death energy that pairs flawlessly with the spear he made, unlocking an entire tree of branch skills like Bone Shield, Giant Claw, and Bone Prison, getting our MC pumped with so many possibilities for growth, who quickly notices a wandering undead stray with a skeletal hound nearby, finding it the perfect opportunity to test his brand new spell on the targets, hurling the bone dart at high speed, blowing the enemy skeleton into tiny pieces, leaving behind nothing but pure bone essence, proving that the power of this technique easily outclasses standard apprentice tier spells, though the system only awards 0.05 in stats and soul power, showing that gains have dropped to push the boy into exploring deeper and more dangerous regions of that world, though he decides to farm every single drop out of the weak monsters before moving on to tougher areas. Back in the classroom, Fang Zhou's real body lets out an accidental chuckle and catches the teacher's attention, making the woman walk over and tug his sleeve to snap him out of it, demanding an explanation as to why everyone is focused on meditating while he is the only one laughing for no reason, giving Lu Renjie the cue to stand up laughing and accuse the kid of being unable to meditate because of his trash class, while classmates whisper among themselves that almost no one becomes a necromancer and their method is usually flawed and difficult, causing the teacher to scold our MC, assuming he gave up on his own training and is disrupting the flow of the class, praising Lu Renjie, who has already managed to manifest the hilt of his flaming dagger and is bragging like a total genius, taunting Fang Zhou to make him realize the sheer gap between their classes. But our boy just smirks, saying that his rival's speed is honestly pretty pathetic, making the rich kid so pissed that he yells that someone who can't even meditate has no right to talk trash, until a massive dark presence looms behind Fang Zhou, causing the teacher to order everyone to fall back, warning Lu Renjie to keep his focus before getting swallowed by the spiritual pressure, while our MC simply tells the bully to take a step back with utmost calm, explaining to the teacher that he just wanted some room to showcase his true meditation progress, catching the whole class off guard while some still doubt he accomplished anything meaningful. But Fang Zhou unleashes the energy of the skeleton meditation method, without holding back a thing, releasing an impressive burst of wind and darkness that fills the entire classroom, leaving Lu Renjie and the other students completely paralyzed in shock, while teacher Shen Hongyu almost loses her hat seeing that he mastered the entire beginner level in just a single class, allowing our protagonist to mock his rival, saying his talent is merely 1 billion times greater than an average genius. Suddenly, the door swings wide open and instructor Lu Hu walks in, praising the class's great pace, dropping the surprise announcement that everyone will undergo a practical test the very next day, sparking widespread panic among the rookies who haven't even properly meditated yet, while Lu Renjie flashes an evil grin, promising to crush Fang Zhou once the real combat begins. Back in the Underworld, Fang Zhou's avatar faces a new pack of skeletons closing in, and charges forward without wasting any time. Noticing that after mastering the beginner level of meditation, his connection duration increased significantly, determined to take down as many creatures as possible before his spiritual energy runs dry, swinging his bone spear and cutting the monsters in half without hesitation, keeping up his relentless offensive against every target that pops up in front of him, sweeping the battlefield and stacking up consecutive kills, until the avatar begins feeling the heavy weight of exhaustion after the long hunt, seeing a mountain of shattered enemies on the ground as his energy reaches its limit. But soon the system screen alerts him that his main class leveled up and the avatar can now be upgraded, with the young man confirming the process right away, causing a pillar of green light to envelop the skeleton's entire body during evolution, reinforcing the plated armor with gold accents and dark patterns, transforming the skeleton warrior's appearance with an even more intimidating aura, bumping the avatar's rank to intermediate apprentice with 5 strength, 3 constitution, 3 agility, and 3 spirit, on top of automatically unlocking the new brutal strike skill from the evolution, which unleashes a massive combat impact, scaling off the user's strength stat, which will allow him to take down monsters even faster down the road, until the connection starts fading and the avatar's vision begins to dissolve, forcing his consciousness to pull back after burning through all his spiritual energy. Days later, at Haichen High School's training grounds, Fang Zhou rests on the bleachers dealing with a headache caused by low spiritual energy, when Bai Xiachan shows up worried, saying he looks drained all week while the boy plays it off to keep the system a secret. Right when Lu Renjie walks over, mocking him and saying necromancers are so weak, they look completely spent just from a little meditation, making Bai Xiaochan snap and defend our protagonist, asking why the blonde guy is always picking on him, until Fang Zhou stands up asking with a smirk if the guy wants another beating, making the jealous punk draw his dagger, saying he just learned a class skill and only needs 1 hit to win. But the argument gets cut short by instructor Lu Hu, who steps in telling everyone to knock it off, chewing the kid out by reminding him that the school teaches techniques to slay savage beasts, not for petty infighting, praising Fangju's meditation marks and encouraging the boy to bring his best to the practical exam as well, making our boy realize the instructor seems to be looking out for him on purpose, until the teacher barks the order for all students to get into formation, telling the assistants to bring out the testing gear onto the field, wheeling in a cart carrying a test dummy draped under a cloth, revealing an apprentice-tier mechanical dummy with a 100 attack and defense on the display, with the instructor explaining that the machine is modeled after lesser abyss demons, and that 100 defense can tank their claws head-on, prompting one of the students to touch the robot and ask if there is any risk of them breaking the machine, which makes Lu Hu laugh as he slaps the iron frame, guaranteeing that no rookie has ever managed to damage a dummy like this, promising 20 Federation contribution points out of his own pocket to anyone who can break the robot with raw power, catching the attention of Fang Zhou, who knows these points serve as currency to buy high-value items and skills, while the rookies from common classes line up eagerly to try their luck first, with the first student focusing fire at his fingertips, blasting an explosive fireball right into the machine's chest, scoring just 48 attack power to the disappointment of the boy who thought his strike was strong, followed by a swordsman who uses a slash attack and only manages 41 points, and an archer who shoots a special arrow and hits the mark of 50, wrapping up the tests for common classes and calling the special classes to the front line. The regular students complain that nobody managed to pass 60 points and wonder about the hidden class results, while Fang Zhou wonders if the test dummy can register the combined damage of his skeletons, until Lu Renjia walks past taunting him and claiming his attack will be the absolute worst, rushing quickly toward the robot to show off after mastering his skill, landing the Ghost Dagger strike and locking in a score of 80 on the display, making the instructor confirm 80 attack power while the blonde kid brags about the power of his hidden Ghost Assassin class, until the instructor calls up the next special student named Yi Fan, a guy in a leather jacket who awakened the Demon Hunter class and is already hailed as the school's top prospect, who summons a massive curved blade, dashing toward the target, striking the robot with the Vengeance Strike technique, causing the meter to register 65 points on the initial impact, leaving classmates surprised by such a relatively low score, but the guy announces that he is not done with his combo just yet, linking into the Vengeance combo with multiple rapid strikes in quick succession, pushing the score up to 88 under the furious onslaught of blades, until finishing the sequence and maxing out the display at 100 points, making the instructor officially record a historic score of 100 attack power for Yifan, which makes our MC smile with confidence, realizing that continuous strikes stack damage, knowing that smashing that dummy will be a piece of cake for him. Yifan looks around with a smug sense of superiority, thinking that in this entire class, nobody has what it takes to surpass his talent, while Lu Renjia scoffs, saying he only hit 100 points by stacking hits and gets instantly shut down by Bai Xiaochan, until instructor Lu Hu calls the girl up next to take the practical exam, making the girl take a deep breath, determined not to embarrass herself with her hidden class, unleashing a gust of cutting wind straight toward the mechanical target, scoring 31 points on the screen and leaving the girl bummed out by the low offensive power of her support role, which makes Lu Renjia laugh in her face before the instructor calls up the next student named Gu Jiqiu, a store mage who casts a chain of wind missiles and scores 72 points, followed by Earth Knight Zhao Yuan, who lands a heavy shield bash and scores 69, along with Hammer Warrior Chen Yang, who drops a crushing blow reaching a score of 84. The students chatter that nobody besides Yi Fan managed to hit 100 points and that the robot is still completely intact, noting that there is still one last special class user left, which is the necromancer Fang Zhou, making Lu Renjia mock him, saying the guy won't even score 10 points and that his skeletons can barely stay on their feet. But Fang Zhou asks with a calm smile if the bully is really that sure he won't take home the 20 contribution points, baiting the blonde guy into making a ridiculous bet, swearing he'll eat the iron dummy if the kid manages to break the machine, accepting the bet on the spot while reminding him that he promised it himself, politely asking everyone around to step back a little before he begins, while Lu Renjia taunts him, thinking he's just scared of embarrassing himself, but our boy lets him know that he just needs plenty of room for his magic, manifesting dozens of spiritual chains from which multiple skeletons begin rising, sending the crowd into a panic upon seeing 10 skeletons spawn at once when the norm for an apprentice would be just 2. Shocking, even instructor Lu Hu, who remembers that the greatest necromancer in history, Su Xinyan, could only summon 5 at her awakening, wondering if this kid's potential might actually surpass every legend of the past, while our MC thinks to himself that it's a good thing he held back so he wouldn't draw too much attention, issuing the attack order to his troops, making the undead fly past Lu Renjia at unbelievable speed, landing the first crushing punch right on the dummy's metal face, chaining into a frantic barrage of simultaneous strikes against the iron frame, quickly ramping the score up to 30 as the machine gets bombarded, driving the meter up to 45, 60, and 65 points in mere moments, while the class murmurs thinking that 65 points with 10 skeletons is still weak for actual combat, giving Lu Renjia reason to laugh, claiming the average damage per skeleton doesn't even hit 10, but Fang Zhou warns his rival with a smile not to rush because the fun is only getting started, snapping his fingers and summoning 10 more skeletons to double the army to 20 units all at once, making Bai Xiaoqian proud while everyone loses their minds realizing he was hiding his true power all along, until the heavy blows smash into the device's digital display, ripping the dummy's mechanical arm straight off into the air and sending the score skyrocketing to 97, breaking past the 100 mark and locking in 108 points amidst wild electrical sparks, until a colossal explosion blows the robot to pieces and sends the shattered screen flying away, capped at the limit of 999, leaving the training field in dead silence as the debris rains down on the ground. The students start screaming in hype, saying this rookie broke the machine's damage cap and can't possibly be human, while Lu Renjia shakes from head to toe, unable to accept that insane power, staring at the shattered screen showing 999 on the grass, in pure panic over having to face the consequences of the bet, right as Fang Zhou bends down and picks up the robot's severed head, holding out the metal piece to the blonde guy and telling him to eat it like he promised, letting him know it's fine if he doesn't feel like chewing on that metal, as long as he disappears from his sight for the rest of his life, sending the coward running off stumbling while swearing he'll get his revenge in the future. Bai Xiaoqian rushes over super excited to congratulate our MC and ask him to teach her his training secret, accompanied by Lu Hu, who claps proudly and admits the young man blew past every single expectation, promising that he'll fight to put his name on the official list of seed talents nurtured by the school. Later on in the principal's office, the white-haired principal reviews reports showing over 9,000 students successfully awakened, setting aside the 85 youths who unlocked high-tier rare classes, deciding to place all these prodigies directly among the 100 selected seats to receive extra resources, until his eyes land on Fang Zhou's file with a look of disdain, choosing to cut the kid from the list since he considers necromancer a dead-end profession with zero future. While the principal is still in his office, someone knocks on the door and gets permission to come in, revealing it to be instructor Lu Hu, who rushes in saying he has an urgent matter to report, pulling Fang Zhou's file with his photo and data from the stack of reports, enthusiastically recommending that the young necromancer be added to the school's seed list right away. But the principal argues that the class is unstable and hard to develop in practice, even as Lu Hu brings up the power of Major Xin Yan, revealing that Su Xinyan only became a legend because he poured endless resources into her as her father, and questioning Feng Zhou's merits, mentioning that he knows about Lu Hu's old friendship with the boy's parents who were gray heroes of the Federation, but emphasizing that the seed list demands actual results and comes with massive responsibility, prompting the instructor to hand over the records proving the kid's insane performance in both meditation and combat classes, leaving the principal speechless upon reading that Fang Zhou mastered meditation in his very first lesson and summoned 20 skeletons during the test, deciding to hold off his final judgment until he sees how the kid performs at the opening of the simulated battlefield, growing curious to see just how far this rookie's potential can actually go. Meanwhile, walking through the school courtyard, Bai Xiaoqian curiously asks how he pulled off that feat, praising the absurd amount of skeletons summoned right in his first class while our boy humbly plays it down, leading the girl to tease him saying that too much modesty turns into arrogance, while our MC gives an awkward laugh since he can't exactly reveal that this was merely a fraction of his true power, until Ye Fan pops up right behind him calling out his name, dramatically declaring that he has never been inferior to anyone and that only Fang Zhou is worthy of being his rival in Class 1, leaving both of them staring at him with looks of absolute boredom, turning down the challenge on the spot since he has zero patience for dramatic triads, making Ye Fan chase after him, explaining that he actually wants to hire him as a sparring partner, explaining that the Demon Hunter Research Group needs a worthy sparring opponent to gather combat data, with Fang Zhou questioning why he should waste his time doing that, until the guy offers 10 contribution points plus room and board for 2 weeks of sparring, prompting our protagonist to shake his hand, immediately sealing the deal to Bai Xiaoqian's surprise, heading off together toward the research facility without wasting any time, while the girl whispers asking if he really accepted that weird guy's offer just for 10 contribution points, and the boy thinks to himself that these resources will greatly help the orphanage where he grew up, asking if Ye-fan is some spoiled rich kid to throw points around like that, and finding out the committee merely advanced him the funds, which he will have to pay back in full after graduation, running a serious risk of being in debt for 20 years at the rate he burns through his resources. Upon arriving at the entrance of the military academy's research laboratory, Ye-fan shows off the modern facility packed with cutting-edge technological equipment, impressing our boy with the elite treatment provided for rare classes. When committee head Chen Qing-shan, a silver-rank Gale Ranger, cordially introduces himself, receiving a respectful greeting from Feng Zhou and Bai Xiaochan, while our protagonist notices that despite being a researcher, the man carries the heavy presence of a battle-hardened veteran. Hearing the professor explain that a veteran demon hunter recently hit legend rank in the Abyssal Secret Realm after defeating an Abyss Lord, which is why the Academy created this special squad to draw out Ye-fan's full combat potential, turning his attention back to Feng Zhou and revealing that he also analyzed his profile carefully, offering to establish a dedicated research committee for the young man, who politely turns it down on the spot, since he doesn't even want to consider the idea of spending 20 years paying off debts after graduating. The researcher then leads the boys down to the underground combat arena to begin the practical simulation, assuring them that the venue has full safety measures so they can go all out without any fatal risks, allowing each of them to pick 3 pieces of military gear from the armory for the clash, leading our MC to assess that his rival's high speed and burst damage pose a direct threat to standard summons, deciding to use the system's skill deduction feature to upgrade his arsenal before getting started, upgrading Bone Dart to level 2 and unlocking the level 1 Bone Shield spell, while Ye-fan hangs up his jacket and gets ready for the duel, warning that he mastered bladed bow specialization and that not even 20 skeletons will stand a chance against him, with Feng Zhou putting on a camouflage cloak and replying with relaxed calm, well aware that after allocating his skill points the outcome of this fight is going to shock everyone. Displaying his updated status with Strength 1.5, Agility and Constitution 1.3, Spirit 2.5, and Proficient Spells, wielding an apprentice staff imbued with magic as he challenges his opponent not to disappoint, geared up with the standard staff that grants a slight boost to spell potency, and the apprentice robe that provides minor damage reduction in battle, as Ye-fan compliments his rival's confident attitude, warning that the growth he achieved during training is going to blow him away, leaping high into the air ready to unleash the first strike against our protagonist, while the researchers in the observation booth bet on an easy victory for Ye-fan thanks to his razor-sharp instincts, until instructor Lu Hu walks into the lab warning them not to jump to conclusions so quickly, explaining that he came to watch the duel between his top students and firmly backing Feng Zhou, even though Chen Jingshen points out that a mage has a body far too fragile to tank direct attacks, revealing that the young hunter just learned an insanely powerful movement technique the previous day. In the arena, the curved blade slices through the air as Feng Zhou agilely backs off, judging that the opponent's close combat is deadly and keeping distance is his best bet. But Ye-fan draws the string of his bladed bow, firing the demon-hunting arrow, forcing our boy to summon his undead to the front line, raising a wall of skeletons to intercept the incoming projectiles, which end up pierced by the sheer force of the shot, while the hunter keeps firing non-stop to disrupt the flow of the summons, managing to disrupt a magic circle on the floor with a burst of energy, making Feng Zhou narrowly dodge a hail of arrows that almost grazes his face, until the kid plants his hand on the floor, reactivating the magic formation at full output, causing an entire horde of skeletons to erupt from the arena floor in seconds. Up from the observation booth, Professor Chen is blown away by the skill of both youngsters, stating that even if Feng Zhou loses, he already earned a guaranteed spot on the seedless, while Lu Hu assures him that such a calm and experienced kid definitely still has aces up his sleeve. Seeing that his undead are being pressured, Feng Zhou decides to go all out, raising his staff high and unleashing the maximum output of his skeleton summon, sending the entire lab into sheer shock as 30 skeletons appear simultaneously across the field, with Ye-fan surrounded on all sides yet still hyping up his rival's raw power, while Feng Zhou grows suspicious of his opponent's composure amidst so many enemies. Right when the hunter carves through the skeletons with a blade combo, carving a path through the broken bones on the ground, calculating the exact distance to end the fight in a single dash, activating his special skill, unleashing Shadow Dash at mind-blowing speed straight toward Feng Zhou, pausing Professor Chen to yell from above that no mage could survive a point-blank strike like that, with the blade slashing down hard at our MC. But our protagonist smirks, letting him know that he just walked into a trap, manifesting Bone's shield to block the strike with an impenetrable barrier of energy, knocking Ifan back in utter shock from having his ultimate strike completely shut down head-on, leaving the researchers in pure disbelief seeing the defensive skill completely brand new and unheard of for necromancers. The boy calmly apologizes, saying he needs to use smart tactics against such a tough rival, tossing his own staff onto the ground on purpose to throw his opponent off, making Chen Qingchen adjust his glasses, totally baffled by the kid's move, while Lu Hu chuckles, realizing our MC fights dirty and packs pure cunning in battle, since he triggered the cloak's optical camouflage to blend right into his skeleton army, leaving Yefen completely lost, unable to locate the true body of his foe, yelling from the center of the encirclement for the kid to come out of hiding, deciding to bring out his strongest skill before exhaustion pins him down, blasting off in a beam of energy that leaps toward the ceiling of the arena, stunning the instructors that he mastered such an advanced burst damage and evasion skill, managing to spot the real Fang Zhou from above amidst the undead crowd, and diving in a freefall with falling sky strike to crush our protagonist, crashing down like a meteor onto the cluster of undead, while our camouflaged MC looks up in surprise. The next instant, falling sky strike detonates, wiping the area with a massive shockwave, kicking up a smokescreen as the hunter breathes heavily, believing he took the victory, proudly claiming that he would never allow himself to be defeated in this duel, and asking them to call the medical team right away to avoid a fatal tragedy. But the instructors in the observation room keep looking at him with very weird expressions, making the young man suspicious of everyone's strange reaction, until he looks at the floor and discovers that the defeated body is just another disguised skeleton, realizing he didn't hit the real Fang Zhou at all, going into shock after realizing our MC used a double reverse camouflage trick to deceive his eyes, right as several other skeletons burst from the magic formation, grabbing hold of his legs, and Fang Zhou appears right behind him, pointing his staff, forcing his rival to drop his weapon and admit checkmate, officially calling his surrender while Fang Zhou's victory is announced. The hunter complains that his final move burned all his mana, leaving him completely drained, but is quickly supported by a skeleton that keeps the guy from falling over, prompting Yifan to thank the creature for its kindness, while our MC gives a thumbs up, joking that it is just sympathy for the loser, leaving his rival tilted on a stretcher, carried by skeletons, swearing that this failure will only make him stronger. The instructors head down to the arena with Chen Qingchen admitting the boy's power exceeded everything he expected, joking that with such dirty tactics he's definitely going to become a master tactician, while Lu Hu curiously asks if that bone shield spell was created by him personally, with Fang Zhou confirming he grasped two original skills during training and named them Bone Dart and Bone Shield, leaving both veterans utterly speechless in pure bewilderment, until the professor slaps the kid on the back, congratulating him on yet another mind-blowing surprise, suggesting they use the lab equipment to measure the exact output of these two new spells, although Fang Zhou warns that his spiritual energy is drained and he can't cast anything right now, leading the instructor to bring over an entire box of spirit recovery potions for him to chug, having our protagonist down the bottle in one gulp and instantly refill his entire mana pool. With a fresh testing dummy set up in the arena, the professors authorize the test to begin, instructing the boy to fire his spell with full power at the target, letting Fang Zhou materialize Bone Dart, launching the projectile, which slams into the machine's chest with a loud crash, registering 85 attack damage, leaving Professor Chen amazed by a self-created spell that beats out the firepower of most rookies. Moving on next, to evaluate the defensive capabilities of the second skill, with the mechanical dummy rushing in at high speed, throwing a heady punch, which is effortlessly blocked by Bone Shield, recording 80 defense power points, proving that Fang Zhou packs the offensive output of a Storm Mage and the defense of an Earth Knight, leaving the instructor beaming as he declares this kid was born to be a legendary necromancer. Professor Chen then steps forward, suggesting the young man register his spells at the Federation's Skill Library, an official facility where awakened users across the country spend contribution points on skills and spellbooks, explaining that there is an archive branch right inside the academy so he can register them whenever he likes, and that by registering his skills, he can use his points to acquire brand new knowledge, having the boy push through the doors and step into the silent lobby, finding the atmosphere rather dark and mysterious at first, until the lights turn on, revealing massive hallways packed with books from end to end, showcasing the sheer scale of the Federation's official archive, where practically any spell known to mankind can be found upon the shelves. Heading straight to the central pedestal to touch the registration orb, receiving the notification that Bone Dart and Bone Shield were successfully registered, granting 200 contribution points, along with securing 50% royalties on all future purchases made by other awakened users, Deciding to seize this prime opportunity to browse other valuable techniques in the archive, finding the advanced manuals of the skeleton meditation method on the shelves, ready to use these manuals as a template and spend his 100 soul power points to deduce even stronger spells. Right then, the system detects that the skeleton meditation method can be upgraded by consuming soul power, with the young man confirming the choice and feeling a dense death energy start enveloping his body, awakening the colossal presence of an ancient monarch, who confirms the successful upgrade from the basic method to a superior version, extending an ancient book toward our protagonist, who receives the mysterious tome straight into his hands, releasing a storm of runes and magical inscriptions that fills the entire area, granting him the legendary Bone Monarch meditation method, detailing that the technique doubles meditation speed by 100% and boosts all necromancy spells, getting the kid hyped to speed up his leveling and amplify the power of his spells. However, our MC remembers that any strong spell drains heavy spirit, and in the last fight he almost ran completely out of mana, deciding to use his contribution points to redeem a skill focused on spiritual recovery, spending 20 contribution points to claim the skill book for Presence of Spirit, which passively raises the spirit recovery rate and allows active mana restoration whenever needed. And despite being a difficult technique to master, he spends 10 soul power points to learn it instantly via the system, effortlessly reaching the entry level of Presence of Spirit, feeling his mana regenerate at a significantly faster pace, knowing that he could now drown Yafan in a literal sea of skeletons without ever running out of energy. Next, he spends 60 more contribution points to claim several books on elemental and debuff magic to use as reference material, heading over to the equipment showcase to look for gear suitable for his apprentice rank, spending 40 contribution points to redeem the magic item set, equipping the apprentice hat, necklace, and 2 rings to boost his maximum spirit, speed up recovery, and cut down spell cooldowns, activating the 4-piece set bonus that grants a 10% boost to cultivation speed and proficiency gain, allowing him to level up at an even more ridiculous pace. With his status updated and fully geared up for combat, the young man celebrates his massive harvest of resources inside the Federation archive when the figure of his skeleton avatar materializes beside him, remembering that the skeleton warrior also needs suitable martial techniques for physical combat, picking out weapon mastery, block, and battle cry skills from the shelves, spending 30 more contribution points to claim the 3 skill books, pocketing the tomes while thinking he will need to find more lucrative training gigs to keep farming points. Back in the underground arena, Professor Chen asks if he managed to learn anything useful, and our MC confirms it was super productive, until an annoyed voice echoes across the hall calling out his name, revealing a fully healed Yafan, tossing a potion to Fang Zhou and demanding a rematch, asserting with all his pride that he will never accept being second to anyone, making Fang Zhou warn him that this counts as extra sparring and will cost more contribution points, while Professor Chen greenlights the boy's debt, tossing the flask right back and telling him that the hunter is the one who will need that medicine in a bit, leaving Ye Fan furious as he leaps into the air to reopen the fight with the devastating falling sky strike, with Lu Hu praising the kid's wit for banking on a swift victory before the necromancer can set up his defenses, while everyone waits to see how our protagonist will react, until Fang Zhou snaps his fingers, triggering a massive magic circle on the arena floor, making Bai Xiaochen wonder why he's only relying on basic skeleton summoning. But the instructor's eyes go wide upon noticing something totally abnormal, noticing the absurd amount of undead materializing on the spot, forming a colossal tower of dozens of stacked skeletons rising all the way to the ceiling like a living fortress wall, taking the full brunt of falling sky strike in midair with a thunderous explosion, clearing the smoke as the instructors note that Yi Fan's strike got even more destructive than before. But Fang Zhou's calm voice whispers right into the hunter's ear, congratulating him on the stronger hit, letting him know with a cold smirk that his own spells leveled up a bit as well, right as an armed skeleton winds up a fist right in front of his nose, unleashing a merciless gang beatdown while the poor guy begs them not to hit his face, wrapping up the session with Yifan knocked out flat on the floor in no condition to train for an entire week. Professor Chen takes the chance to push for a necromancer research team again, but the kid turns it down once more, fearing they might dig too deep and uncover the existence of his secret system. Meanwhile, in another section of the skill library, an elegant woman in an overcoat notices something strange on the terminal, being left bewildered upon discovering that new original necromancer skills were just added to the database. The woman identified as Su Xingyan spends 20 contribution points to claim the newly registered spells, rating about Bone Dart and Bone Shield and becoming captivated by the genius of whoever crafted these techniques, deciding to rush over and break the news to her father. Meanwhile, in the office of Principal Su Tianquo, the veteran asks why Lu Hu came looking for him again, with Lu Hu and Chen Qingshen pushing together for Fang Zhou to be added to the seed list right away. But the principal takes a sip of tea, stating that necromancers lack sufficient skills to scale in the future, until Chen reveals that the kid just created 2 original spells completely on his own, making the old man spit out his tea in surprise. But he still tries to brush it off, claiming creating spells means nothing if they aren't actually powerful. Right when his daughter Su Xinyan swings the door open super hyped, announcing that 2 incredible necromancer spells appeared in the database, leaving the principal completely stunned by the coincidence, while the woman projects the spell simulations, praising the spectacular effect of each one, asking if her father knows who the genius was behind crafting those masterpieces, and declaring that she wants to become the author's apprentice on the spot. The principal gets awkward and warns her that it will be pretty hard for her to pull that off, explaining that the creator of those techniques is still just a freshman student at the academy. Meanwhile, in the classroom, Ye Fan barges in, challenging his great rival to yet another duel, with Fang Zhou resting his chin on his hands, asking how many more times he plans to challenge him instead of actually training. But the hunter insists that this time things are going to be completely different, claiming that with Bai Xiaochan's help his power skyrocketed, while the girl complains, reminding everyone that he begged on his knees for her help, and the girl reveals to Fang Zhou that while sleeping she grasped a support skill called lullaby, explaining that the melody accelerates mental energy recovery and enhances the effects of any training or meditation, with Yufan sharing that the technique can only be used 3 times a day, and he had to pay 2 contribution points a week for this perk, making our protagonist wonder if this dude really plans to spend his entire life drowning in debt, but soon wondering if this training boost effect would also work on his skeleton avatar, grabbing Bai Xiaochan's shoulders and asking to buy the last cast of the day, to the surprise of Ye Fan, who gets completely ignored, summoning a few ordinary skeletons right in the middle of the classroom, telling his rival to play with them first and remembering to transfer the contribution points when he's done, asking his classmate to cast lullaby straight onto him, having magical musical notes envelop Fang Zhou's body in perfect harmony. In the underworld, the skeleton avatar meditates inside the ravine, successfully receiving the lullaby buff that supercharges its spiritual cultivation, reaching senior apprentice rank with strength 8, constitution 7, agility 7, spirit 6, 50 soul points, and multiple mastered skills. Right as a skeleton wielding a mace leaps into battle, having the avatar raise its bone spear, executing the parry technique to deflect the impact of the enemy weapon, activating weapon mastery with expert precision, tossing the opponent into the air with a swift maneuver, spinning its body with surgical precision, winding up a strike against the helpless monster, thrusting the tip of the spear straight into the creature's skull, absorbing the enemy's soul with a 10% higher gain thanks to the magical melody bonus. Right when 2 more massive undead wielding axes charge toward him, but the avatar leaves to dodge the attack, wiping out the monsters in the blink of an eye and harvesting more strength and soul power, when he spots an entire legion of skeletons marching along, letting out an intimidating roar and challenging the enemy army to a clash, activating Battle Cry to temporarily buff all of its physical attributes, tearing through the opposing ranks with successive blasts of death energy, slaughtering the creatures, and racking up a non-stop flow of stack gains, until he notices bone fragments floating and fusing together in mid-air, getting stunned by the colossal aura rising on the horizon, revealing a massive creature with white wings and a golden halo wielding a gigantic greatsword, introducing the dreaded Bone Angel as the boss that just spawned right in the middle of the rookie zone, which then raises its gigantic sword, bringing down a slash that splits the ground and blasts rocks everywhere, making our boy break into a cold sweat, realizing a single strike like that would obliterate his body, deciding that retreating won't solve anything, and his best move is to go all out on the offensive, popping Battle Cry to pump up his stats and unleash all his ferocity, leaping toward the boss while readying the bone spear in his right hand, landing the shield breaker stance right on the monster's shoulder joint, channeling the power of brutal strike into the tip of the weapon, landing multiple strikes in rapid succession that shatter and shred the creature's left arm, backing off in midair to gain distance while the giant looks confused, causing the monster's severed arm to crash down onto the ground, leaving the boss enraged as it raises the giant blade with its remaining hand, forcing the avatar to activate the block skill to hold off the counterattack, getting blown far away by the ridiculous pressure of the blow's impact, slamming into the stone cliff which completely cracks from the force of the hit, making him feel pain echoing through every single one of his bones, relieved that he broke one of the monster's arms earlier, or else that blow would have shattered his body entirely. However, our boy notices something crucial during the exchange of blows, seeing that breaking the limb exposed the soul flame core inside the boss's chest, when suddenly the monster shifts its stance and begins spinning its blade, creating a whirlwind of edges, a literal meat grinder, making the avatar retreat on high alert, and as it moves the monster shreds everything around it. Realizing that the centrifugal force compensates for the lost arm and protects the weak spot from any direct projectile, until the monster locks its spinning attack onto the skeleton in direct pursuit, cornering our protagonist at the end of a dead-end ravine, with the sword hurricane closing in fast, ready to tear everything apart, forcing the boy to bet everything on a risky play, focusing his vision to read the razor-sharp air currents around him, finding a tiny opening in the rhythm of the enemy's rotation, launching the charge skill in a direct dive right into the vortex, driving the bone spear right into the giant's shoulder and breaking its rotation, mocking the monster's face, saying a big guy like that looks like he has osteoporosis, exposing the beast's soul core, firing a bone dart point blank straight toward the monster's chest. But the boss reacts at the very last second, shielding its body with its bone wings, blocking the piercing projectile, making the shot ricochet away as the bone angel floats back up into the air, channeling more energy into its sword to unleash a fresh attack. But Fang Zhou triggers the system's fusion deduction, combining web magic with bone armament, successfully creating the bone shackle skill to bind targets with sturdy magical chains, proving he can fuse spells from other classes into powerful exclusive undead magic, pointing his hand at the flying angel and mocking its habit of staying airborne, unleashing bone shackles that bind the giant's wings and torso with spectral chains, pulling the bindings with all his might, ripping the boss out of the sky and slamming the monster face first into the rocks, warning the creature not to struggle on the ground, while focusing all his death energy onto the tip of the spear, noting that the harder the enemy resists, the sweeter the victory tastes, impaling the bone angel's skull with a thrust that completely destroys the creature. Then the avatar grabs the boss's soul flame, swallowing the monster's spiritual fire to absorb all its accumulated power, receiving 100 soul power points and a notification that all its attributes hit the racial cap of the species. Understanding why its stats capped out at the maximum limit for an ordinary skeleton, looking around with the urge to explore deeper regions, tapping the option to confirm racial evolution from apprentice skeleton to black iron rank skeleton warrior at the cost of 100 soul points, being enveloped by a surge of death energy, ready to take the next major leap of power on his evolutionary journey, feeling the death energy reshape his entire physical structure until the system successfully confirms his evolution into a skeleton warrior, evenly raising all 4 of his main attributes to 30 points, on top of unlocking the exclusive Bone Monarch racial talent, which grants a blessing from the Underworld's will, increasing damage dealt to other skeletons and reducing damage taken from them, which, in our MC's eyes, is the ideal buff to farm and hunt monsters around their way faster. When an ordinary skeleton sneaks up trying to crack a club against the back of his neck, but the piece of bone simply shatters across the avatar's skull without leaving a single scratch, proving that the damage reduction is so ridiculous that he doesn't even need to bother blocking hits from weak enemies anymore. Soon the system alerts that a new bone armament can be acquired and the kid clicks accept, absorbing the surrounding spiritual energies to officially unlock the bone armor skill, condensing a bone cuirass that fuses directly to the warrior's body, boosting its physical defense and raw strength, having the avatar lock its eyes onto another nearby skeleton, warning that it's going to use the poor guy as a punching bag while the monster stammers in pure terror, throwing a heavy punch straight at the poor thing, having the cutting wind of the punch graze right past the creature's skull, leaving the skeleton relieved, thinking it survived by pure luck, until the shock wave explodes, shattering the monster's bones and blasting a crater into the stone cliff, with our MC commenting that he just needed a few seconds for the air pressure to take effect, noting the massive leap in offensive power provided by the new armor, even though the common monsters in this starting zone barely give any experience or soul power anymore, concluding that he will need to march into the uncharted depths of the underworld to keep evolving. Suddenly, the avatar's vision begins flashing a time limit warning, making Fang Zhou realize that the prolonged boss fight drained virtually all of his mental energy, waking up in the classroom panting with a trail of blood running down his face, with Bei Xiaochen supporting the boy, freaked out to see him bleeding during meditation, while the boy understands that these wounds are the reflection of the intense fight he had against the Bone Angel, reassuring his friend by saying he just had a tiny mishap during mental training, until Ye Fan's loud voice cuts through the mood calling his name, showing the sweaty hunter after taking down the skeletons left behind as a distraction, claiming that those summons aren't enough to hold back his advance anymore, leaping over the classroom desks, ready to demand a fair direct showdown. But our MC merely extends his hand with complete chill casting bone shackles, having the chains bind his rival mid-air before he can even lay a finger on the boy, leaving the tied-up kid kicking and complaining that this isn't fair, while Fang Zhou tells him to hit him up again once he stacks more contribution points, walking out with his hands in his pockets while the entire class wonders if that chain spell was yet another original creation by our MC, leaving Bai Xiachen fascinated trying to grasp the true limit of this guy's strength. As evening falls at Haicheng High School, Fang Zhou checks his phone noticing the week flew by and it's already Friday, deciding it's time to visit the place he calls his real home after spending so much time focused on training, stopping first to the school B-Source Exchange Department, where he asks the clerk to convert 10 contribution points into 100,000 Longxia Federation dollars. Hearing the employee warn that trading precious points for ordinary cash is a waste even as he confirms he needs the funds right away, receiving the briefcase with the agreed sum and thanking her for the service, happy knowing this money will secure a much better life for the kids back where he came from. Arriving at the Cloud Orphanage where children play happily across the yard, a woman with a gentle smile watches over the little ones, wondering how many of them will awaken classes in the future, when someone calls out for Sister Raru, drawing the young woman's attention, who lights up with joy seeing Fang Zhou arrive loaded with groceries and gifts, making the kids rush over to hug the boy, asking for sweets while he hands out food to everyone, while Raru warmly asks about the outcome of the school awakening ceremony, celebrating sincerely upon hearing the boy say he awakened as a necromancer, while the little boys think the idea of commanding skeletons is the coolest thing in the world, leading our MC to summon a tiny cute version of skeletons to play with the kids, turning the little skeleton into a fun toy to brighten up everyone's afternoon, taking the opportunity to hand over the briefcase packed with cash to help cover the orphanage expenses, until a sarcastic voice shatters the peaceful moment between them, revealing a scowling bully wearing a gold chain arriving with his thugs to ruin the day. In the Cloud Orphanage yard, the crew of thugs crowds the gate, drawing everyone's eyes, with Sister Raru stepping forward to demand the payment deadline they promised. But the leader of the Tiger Claw gang violently shoves the young woman without showing the slightest bit of respect, arrogantly warning that the final deadline is today and he won't take any more excuses, threatening to seize the entire orphanage land put up as loan collateral, while the henchmen burst into laughter and little Xingxing runs frightened over to the young woman, trying to protect her big sister by headbutting the big guy's leg, prompting the cowardly thug to lift his foot to kick the defenseless little girl. But a summoned skeleton appears in that exact millisecond and catches the attacker's kick midair, leaving the bully completely dumbfounded with no clue where that creature popped up from, while Fang Zhou cradles the little girl and demands the man apologize or suffer the consequences. The henchman whispers into Boss Lu Hu's ear, warning that the kid is just a rookie necromancer, revealing that the leader is named Liu Hu, a ghost-face martial artist who scoffs at necromancers, calling them trash, making Fang Zhou realize he's dealing with professional awakened users. Asking Sister Raru who those guys are and learning they belong to the Tiger Claw Equipment Company, where the orphanage leadership took out a loan to buy training gear so the kids wouldn't fall behind, finding out they use selling sports equipment as a front, or running a shady loan shark scheme with predatory interest rates underneath, racking up an unpayable debt that makes our protagonist wish she had told him about this sooner. Lu Hu points his finger telling the boy to stay out of it and claiming 100,000 Longxia dollars isn't something a rookie can pay. But Fang Zhou coincidentally has that exact amount and simply chucks the briefcase of cash right into the loan shark's chest, stating that the $100,000 is right there and telling the crew to get lost immediately, having the thugs open the briefcase, thrilled to verify that the cash sum is fully accounted for, until the boss throws the briefcase aside, telling his lackeys to shut up, wickedly revealing that he received orders from higher-ups to take the land no matter what, and $100,000 means nothing compared to that. Brandishing a spiked club while Fang Zhou asks what else he wants if the debt has already been cleared, with the criminal holding up 5 fingers and making up that due to the delay the price jumped to $500,000, leaving Roru in despair while our MC flashes an ironic smirk, realizing they were just looking for an excuse to fight, with Lu Hu laughing out loud, saying that a bunch of orphans doesn't deserve to live on such prime real estate, ordering his goons to charge in, beat everyone up, and take the place by force. But Fang Zhou mocks them, asking if they truly want to play a numbers game, making the blonde thug with a cigarette in his mouth freeze in terror upon feeling a deadly pressure, right as a squad of armed skeletons rises from the ground, radiating bloodlust all around, with RMC ordering the thugs to drop to their knees and beg for forgiveness before they face the consequences, leaving the lackey shaking from head to toe, staring into the glowing eyes of death up close. until Boss Lu Hu leaps in front, smashing a skeleton and yelling at his men that student undead are fragile, encouraging the criminals to invade the yard with weapons to drive the children out of the orphanage, making the little girl cry in terror, pleading for help, sparking the fury of our MC, who warns that they chose death and commands his skeletons to spread out, while the goons surround one of the summons, thinking it will be easy to take down, landing a heavy club strike with full force on the undead warrior's head. But the skeleton counterattacks with insane speed, slicing the guy's arm clean off and sending the thud flying, gently covering the child's eyes so she won't see the violence, while the attacker screams in pain on the ground, throwing leader Lu Hu into a panic upon seeing that this student summons pack unnatural strength, leaping in to unleash Bonecrusher strike directly against our boy, making Sister Roarer scream in panic for the young man to dodge the attack. But the blow lands squarely on Fang Zhou's bone shield without dealing any damage whatsoever, leaving the loan shark terrified seeing his martial technique blocked with such ease, before Fang Zhou fires bone shackles that bind the bully's body mid-air in the blink of an eye, pulling the chains down, slamming the attacker hard into the courtyard floor, causing the man to spit blood and groan in pain, completely crushed, flailing around bound and screaming furious insults at our protagonist, right as two special summons cross their blades right at the thug's neck, while Fang Zhou steps up with a ruthless glare telling him to kneel and apologize if he wants to keep his life, and scared to death, bully Lu Hu starts stammering, kneeling on the ground and begging for mercy with his head lowered before our MC, while the lackeys in the back look at each other not knowing where to hide their faces, bowing in sheer desperation and pleading for the young man to show mercy to all of them, with Fang Zhou telling the thugs to take the debt money and vanish from his sight forever, forcing the loan shark to swallow his pride out of pure fear, and sprint out through the gate with his tail between his legs. Out on the street, the blonde lackey asks if they are really going to let this slide, and Lu Hu snaps back, asking if his buddy thinks he could beat that monster, secretly plotting to raid the orphanage again the moment the kid leaves. In the yard, Sister Ruru asks in amazement, since when he got so strong, and the boy just plays it down saying his awakened class is pretty good, while the kids cheer all around, calling our protagonist a hero and getting advice to train hard in the future, asking the young woman next to take him to the bedroom to visit Grandma Yoon, walking through the garden while asking if the elderly lady's health worsened lately, hearing that she worked her whole life raising all of them and carries health issues that are hard to cure in old age, but seeing him grow into a talented awakened user will definitely bring joy to her heart. Stepping into the room, the white-haired elder recognizes the boy's voice and asks about his studies at Haicheng High School, happy to see him on his day off and teasing him about bringing so many bags and gifts, with Rauro sharing that the boy grew up and just paid off the entire debt for the training equipment, alarming the old lady who worries he might have taken a dangerous loan until the boy reassures her he earned the money through his own hard work. Thinking about the generosity of his classmate who funds lucrative sparring sessions at the academy, making the sweet old woman cough with fatigue yet celebrate that her surrogate grandson has a bright future ahead, holding the elder gently as she tells him not to worry about issues that come with old age, but she insists he give total dedication to the upcoming midterm exams, chuckling as she remembers that older sister Wenju went through the exact same tests years ago, bringing back memories of Sister Wenju who already graduated and fights bravely on the front lines against monsters, encouraging the young man to rest up so he can score even higher than his sister did in the past. Leaving the room and closing the hallway door, Fang Zhou transfers 20 contribution points directly to Raru's account, explaining that he can't visit often and these points are the best way to secure everyone's well-being, having the young woman shyly accept and show the boy to Wenju's old room, offering to whip up something to eat while the young man politely thanks her, setting his eyes on an old picture frame on top of the desk, looking warmly at the family photo and wondering how his sister is doing on the front line, even though he knows the border war is still far from his current reality, sitting on the bed in lotus position determined to get a stellar score on the school exam to protect his family, issuing the command for the system to transfer his consciousness back to the underworld. Back once again in the desolate wasteland, our MC concludes that the Outer Rim monsters no longer serve his leveling needs, walking beneath massive rib cages and carcasses toward the inner valley, and ignoring the weak monsters, until he spots two armed skeletons standing on guard in the shadows, noticing they wear better helms, shields, and bows than ordinary skeletons, when the shield warrior steps forward to attack, getting blocked cleanly by our protagonist's bone spear, who mocks the weakness of the strike thinking the enemies in this zone would be stronger, but an arrow flies straight toward him fired in a sneak attack by the archer, making the avatar dodge just in time and realize these monsters possess the intelligence to coordinate combo attacks, deciding to take out the ranged archer first with the charge skill, but the blade cuts serve nothing more than an illusion of the enemy. Finding out that these evolved creatures can also cast magic and martial skills, right as the swordsman charges in with its glowing shield, landing a heavy slam against our boy, while the archer above fires a barrage with the phantom shot technique, sending 3 piercing magical arrows straight toward the warrior, who defends against the volley with his shield and uses the close range to bring down the first skeleton, channeling his concentrated death energy into the spear, leaping high to impale the archer with bone dart, shattering the skeleton sniper and releasing its essence, absorbing the monster's soul to gain 0.3 agility and soul power, breathing a sigh of relief and confirming that the interior of this dark wasteland is far more dangerous than he imagined. 1 week later, deep within the wasteland of the dead, where a skeleton mage raises its staff casting spells, firing off a flurry of energy blades, while our MC spins his spear at high speed to deflect the projectiles, turning aside the magic slashes with the heavy protection of his iron plates, leaping toward the spellcaster, activating the brutal strike technique to deliver full power into the hit, shattering the defensive barrier and pulverizing the skeleton mage to gain 0.3 constitution and soul power, sensing the presence of new enemies advancing behind his back that very instant, raising bone shield to block the sword slash of an enemy warrior, extending his left hand to release magical binding chains, locking down 2 infantry skeletons with bone shackles in one clean move, and bringing down the bone blade, which pierces straight through the creature's chest. Noticing that those monsters formed a 4-member tactical squad to surround him, right as a dual-shield brute charges furiously toward him, hammering heavy shield bashes against our protagonist's queer ass, pressuring the avatar's defense without giving room for an immediate counterattack, while the other skeletons manage to break the chains and charge once more, striking from every angle with swords and daggers against the bone armor, causing the bone plating to crack under the continuous onslaught, with the armored monster popping shield bash to knock him down, but our protagonist leaps at the final second dodging the rush, realizing he needs a more destructive spell to pierce through such tough defenses, ordering the system to upgrade Bone Dart at the cost of 10 soul power points, successfully finishing the refinement, adding corrosive poison and piercing death energy damage to the spell, hurling the newly upgraded Bone Dart with maximum power at the bunched-up enemies, launching the projectile, which punches through shields with physical damage, melts armor with corrosive venom, and annihilates targets with death energy, reaping a massive amount of constitution, agility, strength, and soul power stats as he lands, displaying the black iron rank skeleton warrior with strength, constitution, and agility at 32 points and spirit at 30. Noticing that the valley monsters have grown significantly tougher and his hunting speed has slowed down, deciding it is time to wrap up his underworld training for now. In the real world, Fang Zhou wakes up in the bedroom letting out a long sigh of relief, opening his status panel, and checking that his real body rose to intermediate apprentice with strength, agility, and constitution at 3.9 and spirit at 6, knowing that with these stats he is already considerably stronger than any of his classmates, until the system alerts that the Bone Monarch talent can be used to deduce a new spell for his main body for 10 soul points, unlocking the Skeleton Domination skill which boosts all attributes of summoned undead based on the user's spirit, lying back on the bed celebrating the ridiculous power boost granted to his army. Soon, Sister Raru opens the door reminding him that the big midterm exam is today, and he cannot be late, with the boy getting up excited and promising to grab the top score to bring more resources to the orphanage, hearing the young woman warmly reply that seeing him safe and healthy is more than enough to make her happy. At the gate, Grandma Yun, Raru, and little Xing Xing wave goodbye wishing him good luck on the exams, while Feng Zhou walks off focused with the non-negotiable goal of taking first place overall, completely unaware that lone shark Lu Hu is lurking around the corner watching him leave, celebrating with an evil grin seeing that the path is finally clear to make his move. At Haicheng High School, thousands of students pack the field where holographic screens display the rules of the simulated battlefield, was upperclassmen in the bleachers commenting that most rookies have not even hit intermediate apprentice level yet, until a senior in a striped shirt warns everyone not to sleep on this year's freshmen, pointing at Yi Fan who is furiously trying to beat Fan Zhou even in mobile games after mastering 4 skills, complaining about his rival taking so long while Bai Shachan teases saying he would lose anyway if our MC were there, waving cheerfully upon seeing our MC walk up through the crowd, prompting Yifan to challenge the kid to see who clears the simulated battlefield first, while our MC does not care at all. With the hunter bragging about his grueling training and Bai Xiao-chan jokingly suggesting that whoever loses should do a handstand walk while naked, leaving the guy offended by the joke while from high up on the school rooftop a woman with long red hair gazes down at the courtyard. Being the principal's daughter, who locks her eyes on Feng Zhou, finding this young genius extremely interesting. Well guys, our MC has no idea about the danger brewing back at the orphanage, and this practical exam is shaping up to be totally insane. If you want to see how this story unfolds, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapters. Thanks a lot for watching all the way through, and I'll catch you in the next video.